Okay, so this is going to be our second Team Yankee scenario that we've run. I haven't rolled for the scenario yet, but the basic setup is going to be that after the defeat of the British mechanized infantry, the one escaping platoon managed to get in touch with British armored forces who are desperately trying to mount a counteroffensive to knock the Soviets off of their balance. So as they were assembled, the West German farmer, who is right here, has reported to them that a group of Soviet tanks came in, got fresh water, stole his chickens, and are located in this small area around his farm. So as quickly as they could, the British they rounded up a meager force here to try and counterattack, and it's consisting of 5 challengers here, which would be the company commander and 2 platoons of 2. And then we are going to have the surviving British platoon from the last scenario is going to accompany them. They're battle hardened. We have a platoon of an anti-armor platoon of Milans. The British commander put in a request for some anti-aircraft because he knew that they had Heinz. Couldn't get him any, but the good news was they managed to get a couple MLRSs with a spotter team, so he'll be using those. And then the nice icing on the cake was that the Royal Navy, off of the HMS Dauntless, was able to scramble 2 Royal Navy Harriers to act as air support. So the commander is hoping that the Harriers can scare off any Heinz as well as the main turret guns off of the Warriors. And we're not sure. Our Soviet player is inside right now making his list, so we're not really sure what we're going to be facing. Okay, so OG has his reinforced, is it a T72 company?
Yeah.
Battalion? And so what do you got? You got your company commander, you have 2 platoons of T72s, you have a platoon of T62s, a platoon of T64s, a huge group of Heinz, Carnation Battery with a spotter, and new to the table, some AA. What kind of AA are those again? They're called Gophers. All right. So we'll be rolling for the scenario, and we'll see what's going to happen. Okay, so this is our initial setup with Britain trying to counterattack with a Challenger squadron. The scenario calls for reserves for both of us. Soviet player has delayed reserves, and British player has immediate reserves. These are the reserves that I've taken for my force, a platoon of Challengers and a mechanized infantry platoon. And for the Soviet player, he has his AA pieces, his artillery battery, his company commander, and his T64 platoon in reserve. He has T72s in ambush, and then he is deploying with his Heinz off table, as well as my Harriers obviously are off table. So we had to use Flames of War objectives because we haven't gotten our Team Yankee objectives yet. So the British player has objective here and objective over here, with a Soviet objective here and a Soviet objective here. So with his deployment, he is the defender, so he deployed first, deployed T-62 tanks up near the old graveyard up there on that hill, and then has a T-72 platoon that is just approaching into the tree line there. I've deployed my company commander, flanked on each side by his by first platoon of the Challengers in the tree line there. I've got 2 Warrior Milan teams. One's going to have an immediate shot, the other one's going to have to maneuver. We've got our spotter for our MLRS up on that hill, and then the MLRSs are hiding back here. So it's pretty friggin' thin. And then obviously the Harriers are off table. So we'll go ahead and give it a start, and we'll see how it goes. But I'm already kind of feeling very thin. Okay, so end of British turn 1, and the cruel dice gods have struck again. I have rolled probably 7 different ones on this. I rolled a 1 for reinforcements, so no reinforcements. Since I have jump jets, all I had to do is roll a 3, and I rolled a 1. And then tried to get up this hill, rolled a 1. Tried to move forward here, rolled a 1. Tried to shoot over here to here, rolled a 1. And then this guy tried to shoot over here, rolled a 1. I did manage to range in with the MLRS, so we had a successful range in. Hit 2 of the 5 tanks, but obviously with their top armor at 2, they just completely bounced it. So it was a horrible first round for Great Britain. So we'll start with Soviet turn 1. Okay, so end of Soviet turn 1. OG chose not to reveal his ambush, so we got another T-72 platoon out there somewhere. He failed his terrain test to move forward here, but moved 2 around the side to try and advance. The big thing, the 4 Hinds showed up and fired their rockets into the company commander and then the platoon commander's tank. I've never seen so many 6s in my entire life. He actually blew the crap out of that. The real crisis was when the T-62s began to advance. He failed a couple bog checks, 1 on the wall here, and then 1 to climb. We go ahead and play that advancing up is a skill check. But his fire was devastating. Took out the observer for the MLRS battery, and then took out the lead Milan unit, and we are in a lot of trouble here if we don't get some reinforcements fast. Okay, so we're starting with British turn 2. Okay, quickest turn ever for the British. We had the remaining warrior failed its morale test, and it fled off the board. The remaining challenger failed his morale test, but with the company commander there, he was able to re-roll and made the second morale test. No two die rolls for reinforcements. None of them came in. Failed the die roll for the Harrier to come in. So we're starting to think there's something really awful going on because lots of 1s and 2s. It's amazing. So then these 2 challengers here went ahead and took shots. This was the only T-62 that was within their line of sight. They went ahead and shot at him. And again, I think I rolled 2 2s and a 3. And because he has cover behind the wall there, we needed a 4 to hit him. So those were misses. So again, an absolutely devastating performance by the British here. This battle may be over. So we're going to Soviet turn 2. Okay, so end of Soviet turn 2. We've decided that we've already determined that after this game's over, probably going to set it up and try again. The T-62s made a mad dash up to the side here. Oh, they wouldn't have been able to shoot, Owen.
Because the commander.
No, because you dashed them. You can't move that far and shoot.
You're right.
So
take the fire off them.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. The Hinds flew up behind to get the side shot here. And instead, we unfortunately, I wasn't paying attention, and he rolled for side shots into the Challenger, made an amazing roll. He's moving his T-72s up. The company commander's still around here, and then he also went after the MLRSs with his chain guns since the T-62s had already eliminated the tank there. I think what's fair is to say that this platoon is still alive, because you would have used these, all 4 rockets would have been into there, and the odds of him surviving that would have been nil. So I think that's fair.
You can keep your Challenger alive, and I'll just kill the MLRS.
Oh, you see, that is a mercy move. It's because he says, I want to keep playing for a little longer. All right, so what we'll do to correct our action here, in a incredible move of sportsmanship, our Soviet player has elected to eliminate the MLRSs instead of the lone Challenger. So, yeah, this game is over before it's even beginning. But we will we'll see what happens here. So we're on turn 3. Yep, he starts getting his reinforcements too. He still hasn't even revealed his ambush. So it's funny. Anyway. Okay, end of British turn 3, we actually managed to see some forward progress. The Challenger here took one shot, and managed to kill the first kill of the game, T72. We rolled for reinforcements, got one platoon, so our mechanized platoon came on the board, and our lone Challenger platoon is still back there waiting to come onto the board. Next to that Challenger platoon is the Harriers, which have still not come, because for the third turn in a row I have rolled less than a 3 in order to get them here. So, and I believe, I'm pretty sure I rolled in like 3 1s. Anyway, so then the mechanized platoon came onto the board. I chose to walk my guys onto the board and make a skill check. They dug in, and then the warrior transports went ahead and fired on the hinds, and they actually managed to shoot down one of the hinds, which was kind of nice. Even though their rate of fire was 1, I had 5 rolls. I actually made 4 of the 5 rolls, and then Owen made 2 of the saves, and of the 2 remaining, I actually rolled 1 6. So I managed to shoot down helicopters. That's good. So now let's start with Soviet turn 3. Okay, so at the completion of Soviet turn 3, continued to fail his bog checks over here, and so these tanks are forced to stay in place. These tanks went ahead and opened fire on the warriors, managing to actually destroy one of them. The hinds turned towards the warriors now because they realized they're one of the only things that threaten them, and they fired into the warriors and destroyed a second warrior right there. The challengers have kind of gotten an Alamo set up, and they're not exposing their rear armor to anyone being in those trees. So even though his T-72s have pulled up, he's got T-62s here, even though he had helicopters here, he's going to have to find a way to get into the woods in order to get to their side armor, which has made them so vulnerable. So that's the end of Soviet turn 3. Oh, and his very first try, he gets reinforcements. So he's brought in some AA, and assuming someday that these 2 Royal Navy pilots decide to join us, then the AA could be an issue. So we'll see. He stepped away from the table. The whole reason why I brought the MLRSs was to deal with any potential AA. So, like I said, I think I'm in trouble here, but still a lot of fun. But yeah, it is. It is for us. Anybody who's ever played with me knows that when I start on these rolls of 1, it just never stops. So this game could be it could be over before it begins. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, this is no longer funny. Okay, 4 rolls for reinforcements failed. For the 4th turn in a row, rolled a 1 to bring in my Harriers. Did not come in. Fired with the Challenger here. Went ahead and fired at these 2 tanks up here. Missed. This Challenger here fired into this T-72. Wound up hitting. Failed 1 firepower test, and then luckily did the 2nd firepower test. So the Milans, they are guided, so they went ahead and fired into the helicopters. Hit 1, he failed his save, and actually failed the firepower check for the Milan. 3, all 3 hit, all 3 hinds. All 3 hinds failed their saves, and this was what my firepower check looked like. It was terrible. So the hinds survive yet for another day. So we are in Soviet turn 4 here. We're getting down to the end. Between the T-62 shots and the hinds, take another round at the warriors, focusing strictly on the APCs, the transports here. So the T-62s actually managed to bail out one of the warriors prior to the hinds shooting. When the hinds shot, I chose to go ahead and fire with my 2 remaining warriors in anti-aircraft fire. I'm not kidding. I rolled snake eyes. And then he went ahead, fired his rockets at me, and he bailed out the last one and set the other one on fire. Since they are transports attached to this platoon here, they don't flee. So that went on. T-72s, he's really toiling with how to... I've really got my guys locked in here. He's going to have to get into the trees in order to get side shots. There's just no way for him to get side shots here. So he's toiling with what to do. He did reveal his ambush. He chose to reveal it over on this side, and then he just really made a mad dash for this right side objective, which he's going to capture in a turn, unless the Challengers and the Harriers decide to get into the game here. With the way that I've been rolling, I'm not really confident on that, so we'll see what happens. Anyway, so we'll go ahead and we'll start with British turn 5. Okay, so a good round for Britain. So remounted one of the warriors. The other warrior did not remount. However, couldn't shoot back because we shot an anti-aircraft fire last turn. 2 of the Milans went ahead and shot at because they are guided, they went ahead and shot at the helicopters. I rolled 2 1s, I believe. Our Challenger over here went ahead and fired at this single T-72, managed to kill him. Company commander here, and the Challenger here made his morale test, failed it the first time, but because company commander was there, he made it the second time. Company commander is here, does not have any shots, so he went ahead and just sat there and wrote a letter to his wife. Then these finally rolled and got our reinforcements on the board. So the remaining Challenger platoon has shown up, immediately came in, challenged the objective. We actually measured it. The Soviets were actually capturing this objective. They were within 4 inches of it by their turn. So these guys came in at the next time, made 2 shots, made their firepower rolls, so they saved the day. And speaking of saving the day, for the 5th turn in a row, we rolled 1s to get our aircraft in. Ladies and gentlemen, you just cannot make this stuff up. I would say even after at the end of this game that I absolutely love the Harriers. I've seen their performance in the past, but it is amazing how difficult it has been for me to get them on the board today. Like I was telling OG, it's almost like dark comedy. Anyway, that's the end of this round. We'll go on to Soviet turn 5. Okay, so we had, it was Britain turn 6, actually, right? Britain turn 6. And so here's what happened. We went ahead and actually no, we did not do the Soviet turn 2. So let's talk about Soviet turn 5 first. So what happened in Soviet turn 5 was he rolled his last reinforcements.
No, I still had more.
You still have more. He still has 2 more platoons on the table. So his T-64s ran at the double across. He moved up his T-72 here to try and get side shots on our Challengers. Bear with us here. We're giving you a history lesson. The 3 Hinds obviously made a mad dash to try and get side shots. And between the single T-72, which is dead, we'll explain what happened there, and between the Hinds, he was able to get side shots into both of the Challengers and destroy both of them. So then we said, well, unless the aircraft come in, it's the end of the game. So we went ahead and rolled the aircraft save, and lo and behold, for the first time in the game, turn 6, these 2 losers actually showed up. They showed up. We did a massive air salvo, rolled to hit both the tanks, wound up hitting only one. He failed his armor save, obviously. Then we blew up the 1 tank. This tank here is actually, it's just barely, but we measured it. It is within 4 inches, so he's going to capture that objective at the end of my turn, which will give it a Soviet victory. And then over here, I believe just the Milans and the 1 remaining warrior, again, tried to fire into these Hinds just out of spite, but didn't work. So overall, it was a great game. Had a lot of fun with it. The rolling was absolutely ridiculous. It was what occurred here was mathematically impossible. But I think it made it into a steamroll, unfortunately, because I could not get away from my ones and twos. Did the best I could with this little battery here, but what wound up happening is the T72s and this Challenger group here wound up having kind of a little standoff here where no one could move. I couldn't move out and he couldn't move in on me, so it pinned down both of those units there. This Challenger here, he did a pretty decent job at holding the T-62s off from just flanking around the corner. And the fact that the infantry was all dug in over here really helped me secure this objective. But OG was very savvy to that and ran over to exploit the other objective, which he did really good. Even though this guy's going to have to test here, he's tested on a 3+, and he's also not going to test until OG's turn. So he captures it. And that's a victory on his part. So, all right, OG, what are your thoughts?
I think that Soviets need to learn how to get it into fourth gear and move up hills, because both games we've played, I've just sat for the first 4 turns. That guy sat there the entire game. The entire game. He could not move.
Yeah, because you cannot roll a 5 to get him up the terrain. And one of the guys who commented on one of our videos in the past said that you don't have to it's up to you to declare the terrain. And we didn't do a skill check to get up this hill here, but we've always ran skill checks to get up to these hills. So maybe that's something that we need to change to help your mobility. And this platoon here got bogged down quite a bit in these trees here as you were trying to move forward. You were having a hard time rolling the 5s to try and get across there. But what else? What else do you think? You got to use your AA for the first time.
Yeah, I was pretty good. I just think that AA is worth 2 points.
Is that how much it costs for just those 2 little guys there?
2 points.
Yeah. And I got really lucky when you rolled the guided missile AA, because the difference between you went ahead and rolled with your AA machine guns for these guys here because you had nothing to lose. And there's just no way that it's going to happen. But these guys here, it feels ironic for me saying this. I got very lucky with the missile shots. Is it 4 missile shots that they had into the Harriers before the Harriers came down? I am definitely in need of some anti-aircraft, some dedicated anti-aircraft. The last 2 games we've been playing, I've been mostly just trying to use the Warriors anti-helicopter 30mm guns to try and protect me from the helicopters, and it has not been successful this game. The previous game they did okay. We actually wound up destroying his Heinz, but I'm going to have to get the checkbook out and invest in some anti-aircraft. I love infantry in this game. I think they're really great. The minute these guys came in and dug in on the objective here, I knew that this flank was secure. I still think these cheap T-62s are wonderful. I wish these Warrior Milans would have stuck around, but I had a really rough game as far as the die rolling. But overall, what a fun game. I mean, it's really awesome. We need to work on painting our stuff. I mean, OG's already started to paint some of his stuff. We can kind of see the pattern that he's going with for his tanks. And again, a couple of I think I have the lead vehicle in each unit has been painted and what have you. But yeah, we need to get our objectives because we're using our old World War II objectives here. But it's ironic that I was the attacker in this, and it's still, I think, the one thing about Team Yankee is that the NATO player is always going to be on the defensive. It's just with the numbers game and what have you. I could not move forward on him at all. Even when these 2 tanks came in, they had 1 round before that they were knocked out from their side armor and what have you. But overall, a good game. That was our second game. We're going to set up for our third, so we'll let you guys know.